We shall continue with where we left off, and we are now at the last of the factors of enlightenment, equanimity. Equanimity is often mentioned as one of the last factors because it is generally more subtle. For example, you look at the Brahma Viharas, the sublime abides, equanimity is the last. You look at the 10 perfections, equanimity is also the last. And even the jhanas, the last factor of concentration, although not mentioned in the 5, is also upekkha, equanimity. Equanimity is considered a very balanced state of mind. And the function of this mental state is in balancing the consciousness and the mental states. The translation of this mental state is in English, the coefficient of neutrality. Do you know what is the coefficient of neutrality? Equanimity. So why don't they just use the word equanimity? But when you talk about metaphysics, it has got to have some physics in it. The word upekkha is used variously in the suttas and the texts and the Abhidhamma, and so it has many meanings. And so the Visuddhimagga brings up the 10 types of equanimity. We will not go into that in detail, so we just beat around the bush, because in the 10 types of upekkha that's spoken of, some are a bit outside the point. For example, there's one called Viriya Upekkha, equanimity of energy. It refers to the evenness of energy. In contrast to that, two teachers that give different examples. They give an example of uneven energy. Sadhu Pandita uses the example of the chameleon. And of course, here in the 7 factors of enlightenment, it's also called equanimity. Since the chameleon runs and stops, looks around, runs and stops, looks around. So the energy is not regular, it is on and off. My Thai teacher gives the example of the tortoise, Tataruga. Because the tortoise, he gives the example of the tortoise head. It comes out, after that it goes in. So the general recommended is a constant, regular pace of energy that's exerted in a balanced manner. The other more common usage of upekkha refers to the neutral feelings. Text describe it as there are happy feelings, that are painful feelings, that are neither happy nor painful feelings. And this is the neutral feeling. Those feelings is like a kind of a vibration that comes with the stimulus. When the feeling is strong, it's just like the wavelength of the response is big. When it's light, then it is not noticeable, not that there aren't any. It's just like we say, you're making no waves. Or in a more common language, man without feelings. Just like the guard at the palace gate. It's just there like a statue. His expression, his eyes are not supposed to close, I think. But don't try to get through the gate, should you? But he can shoot you with indifferent feelings. But that's not equanimity. Although equanimity usually have, already strong equanimity usually have neutral feelings. Then there's a type of equanimity called Brahma Vihara equanimity, equanimity of the divine abiding. There are 4 Brahma Viharas: loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So it comes under one of the wholesome relationship with beings. It refers to a balanced state. That means whatever happened to people around you, whether you are nice to you or they are horrible to you, you remain, accept it with peace. A good example is the story of a Zen master in China. There was this Zen master in China, and there was this lady, and of course she became pregnant, and she accused the monk of sighing. And so they brought the child to the monk. You made this up, so you take care of him. He said, oh, is that so? So he took it and made a monk of him. And later, the truth came out that he wasn't the culprit. It was another young man in the village, overcome by passion. So they came back and said, very sorry, sir. It wasn't you, our mistake. Take it back. Oh, is that so? Okay, take it. Ordinary person, they would be furious. How can you accuse me of such crime? Big battle going on. Or after that, they take and then they become very attached to it. And if such a case, then they have to call up King Solomon to decide. You know the story of King Solomon? Because there was a dispute between a child. There were two mothers. So to decide it, the king, okay, each one you can you have half of it. Of course, when that happens, the real mother was more desperate. maybe the other one loves the child more. And maybe that one deserves the child more. And so they have this equanimity. It's a more superior kind of emotion because it is very balanced, and usually it has to be a lot of wisdom in it. It doesn't mean that a person with a lot of equanimity does not have compassion or loving kindness, but it shows a very good balanced mental state with regards to all this rapporto. And because of that, the mindfulness can work better, the wisdom can work better, you know better what to do. I remember once I was with a Taiwanese doctor. He was in Malaysia with my friend who drives him around. Now he goes about handling hopeless cases. And so I went to one of these cases. This old lady has been given up as a hopeless case by the hospital, Equanimity. And so, of course, the old lady was gasping for death and dying, no? And he was tranquilo, very calm, do this, the nurse to do that, very tranquil. And they sent the son to get oxygen from the hospital. The hospital refused to give it to him. Protocol, red tape. You may have signed certain things before they give it to you. So he couldn't get the oxygen. He came back screaming, my mother is going to die. But the doctor was tranquil. Probably, if I can read his mind was think, I've gone through this before. So of course the mother died. And after that, the doctor lost his equanimity. It was bowed down low. He looked so sad. He couldn't move. At least he held out until she died. So equanimity is not enough. You have to have strong equanimity. For that, you have to go into the fifth jhana. Anyway, that is Vihara Upekkha. What we are talking of is Vipassana type of Upekkha. Or rather, we're talking Bojjhanga Upekkha. So equanimity is this mental state of balance, or that balances mental states. It is a wholesome mental state, and so there has to be some degree of clarity and mindfulness. And this goes as well for, it also applies to the Brahma Vihara Upekkha. It also applies, that means also present, Brahma Vihara Upekkha. Brahma Vihara object is a living being, and so it cannot be a Vipassana object. The Vipassana object are the Paramattha Dharma. And so the exposition of the 10th Upekkha, the others, we won't go into that. There is this, what is called Vipassana Upekkha. There's another one called Sankhara Upekkha. Then the other one is Sambojjhanga Upekkha. These three are quite similar. Sankhara Upekkha is a little bit different. Sankhara are formations, Upekkha is equanimity, reverse equanimity to formation. Now this is different from Sankhara Upekkha Jnana. It is a knowledge. It means a kind of apprehension of the mind to the sankhara, to the formation. For example, these formations, these mind-body processes and phenomena, the mind apprehends it, looks at it in a very equanimous manner. And so when it is very equanimous, normally the feeling would be indifferent, but the level of insight can be different. So this equanimity of formations can occur in any level of insight. But if you talk of equanimity of formations as an insight knowledge. That's different. And that is, equanimity is not the main point. The main point is the insight. So this level is a very deep insight, and because of the deep insight, the mind is very detached, very concentrated, and so characteristic of it is very equanimous to formations. The main thing is here involved is there is very strong detachment that comes about through understanding the nature of conditioning. And so it is able to go to observe the very subtle and fine objects or formations. Because the concentration is strong, it can last for a long time. The characteristic of these deeper levels is this nature of indifferent feeling that comes with equanimity. For example, the higher jhana, arupa jhanas, the formless jhanas from the fifth onwards, they are all neutral feelings with equanimity. But you look at the definition even of the first absorption, it also refers to equanimity. Notice equanimity refers more to the equanimity mental factor of balance. But the feeling is with joy. So similarly, when you come to insight knowledges, especially when you practice mindfulness, there's a more occurrence of equanimity feelings over the others. For example, when people start practicing vipassana, it's not so joyful, there's a lot of pain. Because mindfulness by itself is balance. When concentration eventually picks up, then the joy factor comes in. But it goes up to a point where it goes into the bhanga jnana, the knowledge of dissolution, or the fifth insight knowledge. And those stages onwards, equanimity will predominate. There's one more I mentioned, is about vipassana upekkha, equanimity of insight. This is, again, refers to the wisdom faculty, where one is able to be equanimous towards the insight knowledges. So when we talk of sambojjhanga upekkha, it refers to the equanimity in the practice of in the presence of the as an enlightenment factor. And so when you practice and vipassana at certain points where the equanimity becomes strong and automatic and naturally, this equanimity balances out the practice. For example, if your mind is not so balanced, practice can become choppy. It's like you're riding a boat, when there are a lot of waves, you go choppy. After a while, you get nausea. Outside, they take this pill. I don't think it will work when you have it in vipassana. I remember once, this terrible food poisoning. So the doctor gave me a painkiller. Pain became less, but my mind went and got stuck in the ceiling. It's a different type of suffering. I don't know which is worse. By the way, for your information, I had that pain after an Italian restaurant. But not here, in Louisiana. Just like it's got a lot of lubrication in it. So when you go meditation, it's very smooth. And it's very subtle, but very smooth. Smoother than silk. So when you practice vipassana, the more your mindfulness, the more detached it is natural that this type of equanimity becomes also more powerful. And even this is also an object of craving, attachment. That's why it is enumerated as one of the 10 upaklesas, 10 defilements of insight. For example, I read one of these Mahasi books. He mentioned that this very subtle attachment to this equanimity is one of the big hindrances before the crossing over to the Maggaphala, even the first path. And this is also one of the factors that create what we call false sensations. Because there are a number of false sensations, that means it is not the realization. but people may think that is realization. For example, the more grosser one is sleeping. Peaceful. What happened? Nibbana. Anyway, sleeping is very peaceful. And this Upekkha is even more subtle. Very mindful, very subtle. But Upekkha, don't care about anything anymore. Let things be. What will be, will be. Sera. Non-preoccupati. I become more and more. What happened? You wake up. Nibbana. No, not Nibbana, Upekkha. So the last phase is usually a very tricky phase. Generally life is that, isn't it? Huh? Climb a mountain, the last part is even in life, you run before you die. It's so very difficult. But that's the most important. I'll tell you a story. This man was sick. I think he was driving. He was driving along the main road, but on the main road he see all those hell beings on the road. That means that he's about to die and go to hell. All those future objects, nimittas, are realizing. When he got back home and he was feeling sick, then suddenly, he started falling deep down very fast. Something, to a hole. Fell. After he reported, he suddenly fell into a hole. And immediately when he fell in the hole, there were a lot of hands coming trying to hold him, catch him. Then halfway it stopped. And he asked, am I dead? Am I dead? Then someone told me, shh, keep quiet, don't say anything, just keep quiet. Shh. Then he came up again. If he has died, there won't be this story. Anyway, it's a true story. It happened in Malaysia. So that's why very important. Equanimity and mindfulness. Don't attach, don't fear anything, just start atento. You have mindfulness and you have detachment and you just stay there as equanimous but as attentive as possible. It's one of the important points to remember when you reach up to this level. It is a waiting game. Of course, sometimes there are certain things can be done, but it depends on the teacher whether they know how. So this is what you call how equanimity factor plays big part in the vipassana. Finishes the 7 factors of enlightenment. There's one more, the Dhammanupassana, that is the 4 noble truths. And this one you all should know, isn't it? Everybody say yes. So what are the 4? The truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, the truth of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So there is the dukkha, samudaya, nirodha, and magga. Summary. The Buddha taught these basic fundamentals in the first discourse. In the Mahasatipatthana, this has been dealt in greater detail. In the Satipatthana Sutta, no. So we just summarize, take the summary of it from the Dhammacakka Sutta. So first is dukkha, suffering. Okay, you know what's suffering? Yeah, you know something. We all know something about suffering. The noble truth of suffering, that is something. Well, they are supposed to be understood only by the noble ones, enlightened ones. So in brief, it says, in short, in the sutta, it says, Panchupadana Khanda Dukkha. That is the clinging, grasping to the 5 aggregates is suffering. And what is the cause of suffering? In short, it is the craving that leads to rebirth. Delighting now here, now there, delighting in things here and there. Brief, in short, it is kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha. The craving for sensuality, craving for birth or becoming, craving for non-becoming. In brief, these 3 can be summarized to craving for existence. And what is the cessation? It says asesa viraga nirodha jago patinissago mutti annalayo. No. Asesa viraga nirodha. A cessation of dispassion without remainder. Cessation of dispassion. Nirodha, there is a cessation. Chago, that means forsaking, letting go. Patinissago, the tranquilization, the detachment, freedom. This is what it means. Viraga is an interesting word. Nowadays they use the word fading away. Even Bhikkhu Buddhist uses the word. I prefer the old word dispassion, because raga is passion. Viraga is the opposite. Anyway, I'm not going to all those scholastic things, because the viraga is an interesting word, but it is practical orientated. The word viraga, dispassion, could mean the mental state of strong detachment. It also could mean nibbana. It is something interesting there. Anyway, in terms of practice, it is getting rid of craving forever. So round of suffering stops. So once I asked my teacher, after one has reached the first path, what else is there that one to do? There you do the same thing. Dealing with craving, so you get rid of all the craving. Craving here is not just a normal sense craving, but the deep-seated roots of existence. And to do that, you have to have the Eightfold Noble Path, because you have heard about the Noble Eightfold Path, and it's 8 factors: right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right. That when you come to talk the actual Eightfold Path, it refers to the path that leads you to Nibbana, not just in the more conventional types of suffering. For example, when you practice mindfulness, it removes a lot of suffering and gives you happiness, but it does not lead you to Nibbana. So you have this, sometimes you hear about this, the Noble Eightfold Path is divided into 3 parts. The first part is morality, the second part is concentration, and third part is wisdom. But remember, the first part in the Noble Eightfold Path would also require at least the first insight knowledge. If not, at least striving for the first. For example, you practice vipassana, but no insight knowledge yet. But still the practice is for the insight. So we close one eye and include you. The second part is the concentration plays the major part. This includes all the insight knowledges prior to the Magga Phala, the Supramundane Lokuttara. This is called the preliminary path. The last part is the noble path, that means the supramundane knowledge. It's not yet finished, because you have 4 noble paths to the Arahant. Quindi, ancora c'è tante cose da fare, tante cose molto interessanti da trovare. Look at the positive side of it. But the main thing about this is the path is the insight. Without the insight, there won't be the path. Okay, we stop here today. So next day we talk about this.